Do do do, do 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 do. Boom, ba-dum, boom, boom. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody, to the live taping of Season 3, Episode 116 of Podcast Pontifications. I think it's all working good, so now I can push this button and say, good morning. Hi. Welcome. My name is Evo Terra. That's right, you are here for... Oh, hold on. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of these because, that just makes things a little more glary for you. Yes, as mentioned, we're going to talk about podcasting. It's Podcast Pontifications time, updating your podcast listener experience assumptions because, do they need an upgrade? For the new people, this is the live taping of a podcast. This is all the stuff that you see that you don't see on television. I mean, when the television is broadcasted to you. This is what happens when you run a live television audience, except this is a podcast, not television. Same thing. All the behind-the-scenes stuff. That's what you're getting right now. That's what you're getting right now. Now, if you want to sit through all that, great, because in about 3 minutes, I am going to I'm going to say, because you can't talk with me, I'm going to monologue, if you will, my thoughts around the podcast listener experience and why your assumptions need to be upgraded. I'm doing that in about 3 minutes. Right now, I'm just drinking up the coffee, the tea, the non-caffeinated tea. Caffeine's coming in a minute. My vocal therapist says, no caffeine on your throat before you start talking, whatever. Anyhow, if you want to sit through all of this, awesome. If you do not wish to sit through it, just go to Podcast Pontifications. That's where this episode and the other 430 episodes of this show are. PodcastPontifications.com. This will be up around 10 o'clock today, this morning. So if you don't want to sit through all of this, you don't have to. I mean, I appreciate you sitting through it. It's lovely when people sit here and watch me say things. I think it's nice. Like Betty just said hello. Hi, Betty. Nice to see you. I'm going to type back. Hi, Betty. I'm doing that right now. I'm typing it back. Yeah, so it's up to you if you want to sit through all this stuff or not. But again, if not, at 10 o'clock, the audio will be finished. There you go. You can have that. If you sign up with an email, if you give me your email address, I will actually, well, not me personally, but the system will email you the audio file as well as a rewritten article. I've taken every word I'm about to say, and I've massaged all of the words so that they sound like they were written by someone who has a command of the English language in the written form. Very different than the spoken form. So you get both. You get best of both worlds. And again, podcastpontifications.com. Go over there, totally free, to get all of the content that I provide to you. We'll have some changes coming up before too long. Interesting. But do all of that. Anyhow, thanks once again for being here. We have lots to talk about as I will mention in the show, but I'll say it again now. If you want, in 3 hours, 2 hours and 58 minutes to be exact. Good morning, Arlen. I will be sitting down with Mr. Mark Asquith from Rebel Base Media, Captivate FM, Productivity, lots of other things in the podcasting world. Mark and I will be sitting down for a fireside chat. There shall be no fire because I live in Phoenix, Arizona. For Phoenix Startup Week. It's Phoenix Startup Week starting right now in Phoenix. Hello, all of my Phoenix Startup Week friends and family. I have a special relationship in my heart with Phoenix Startup Week because I started it and then left before it could even get off the ground. Long story. I'm not going there, but I'm so glad that the vision we had back in 2014 to do this thing became something even bigger and better than we thought it were possible. Anyhow, at 10 o'clock today, which is 2 hours and 57 minutes now, Mark Asquith and I will be sitting down talking about customer experience and using things to engender loyalty. So the timing is perfect. This is kind of a preamble. This is me getting my thoughts out first. And then in a couple of hours, almost 3 hours, I will sit down with Mark and I will be interviewing him, asking him some of these questions. So if you want, you can go to phxstartupweek.com. And I think it's like $10, something cheap for a digital pass to this thing. And you can watch it, us do it live, and I'm relatively certain that you will have the archive available as well, because, look, this is yet another event that can't take place in real life, so cheap, come in and get access to all the content, because, look, there's a lot of things happening. Anyhow, phxstartupweek.com, and watch me and Mark have a conversation, either today, tomorrow, whenever you want to. Okay, with that all out of the way, I need to type in good morning to Arlen. I didn't do that before. I said hello, but I didn't say it. Good morning, Arlen. Boom. Right, with that out of the way, let's get into the show, shall we? Because it's time. It's time. And I want to get this thing done so that Mark and I can do our thingy. I'm using Beeline Reader for the first time integrated. We'll see how that works out with my eyeballs over here. Right, okay, I think I'm good to go. So if you guys are ready, let's read the preamble first. Listener expectations are dynamic. Coupled with the sweeping changes to podcasting over the last few years, podcasters can't afford an outdated view of what we think it takes to build loyal listeners. Oh my God, that sounds like I wrote it. Here we go. Listener experiences are dynamic. Coupled with the sweeping changes podcasting has seen over the last few years, podcasters can't afford an outdated view of what we think it takes to build loyal listeners. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. In an odd twist of irony, I'm about to have a chat with Mark Asquith from Rebel Base Media. The chat title is Creating Experiences That Inspire Loyal Communities. He and I are doing that as a part of Phoenix Startup Week, PHX Startup Week, today. And it's going to be very hard for me during that fireside chat that I'm having with Mark for me to not use Apple Podcasts' botched Apple Podcast subscription rollout as a negative example. It's a negative example that I think very few companies can survive today, to be honest. And that means podcast companies too, and more importantly, podcasters. Let me unpack the description that I wrote for the talk Mark and I are about to have. Here's what it says. Now more than ever, customers are judging the experiences they have with companies, not just within a particular industry, but across all industries. Customers have discovered that switching costs are actually quite low, and loyalty can get stretched thin. And then in this session, Mark and Eva will demonstrate how relentless focus on the customer experience will build the most loyal of communities. So let's break some of that down individually and talk about it from a podcaster's perspective. Why are two podcasters talking about building communities? But more to that, let's really use that paragraph as a way to have a conversation today. So it starts with the words, I chose to start with the words, now more than ever. Now more than ever. And that's hard for a lot of longtime podcasters to understand. And I am a longtime podcaster. What's hard to understand is that 2021 isn't like 2006, for example. We know that. I think collectively we get that. But do we also understand that it's also not like the beginning of 2018, just 3 years ago, when there were a few 100,000 shows? Now there are millions of shows. The beginning of 2018 was also when low-effort podcasts started pouring out into the world, into apps, into directories. You got to remember, that was only 3 years ago when all of these things happened. And a time when podcasting was quite different prior to that. So if you're thinking about things from the mid-20s, the 2010s, 2012, 2014, remember, things are vastly different now for listeners just coming into the space than they were. Let's switch to the idea of the cross-judgmentalism that I mentioned there, the whole across all industries, and switch that to a podcast focus, right? Because people make assumptions and judgments about their experiences, and they apply those experiences and those judgments they make, again, cross-industry, or in our case, across podcasting, right? Now, when I talk about the experience, please understand, I'm not just talking about the audio. Yes, it is important content. You should have and provide a good listener experience. but also the full experience of consuming, finding, listening to, getting more information about all of the pieces of podcasting that are beyond just what goes inside of your ears. Like your website. Like every podcaster's website. People make judgments of a podcaster's website if that's how they discovered it based on other podcast websites they've discovered. And not just other podcasts they've discovered, but other websites they've discovered. Same for social sharing, everything. You are judged not by what you can do with your podcast episodes, but what people want you to do because they experience things all over the place. They judge you by the experience of the app that you push them to. And they're going to blame you, by the way, podcaster. If you push them to an app with a rotten experience, or you somehow tie your show in their mind to an app or a service that gives them a rotten experience, they're going to blame you for that. Even if you recommend a series of apps to listen to and they have a bad experience with one, that's on you. Now, I suppose you could blunt at least some of that if you push it to a well-known service like Spotify, for example. No one's going to blame you for a bad Spotify experience. No rational person will do you. But all the other ones that they've never heard of, including Apple Podcasts, probably on you. They're also going to judge the overall experience of podcasting. Based on what they listen to you, they're going to make a judgment. This is what podcasting is. And this is something that has been plaguing podcasting for the longest time. I heard it all the way back in 2005. People saying to me, I've listened to podcasts. How come more of them aren't better? So those people now have a judgment about podcasting, and that's really hard to get over. If it's a negative opinion, it might take some serious convincing to get them to return to podcasting. And we've had several inflection points that have done it over the years. Do you want to wait for another inflection point before it happens again? I hope not. That's it's an awesome responsibility that we all have to not turn someone off of podcasting. We've got Facebook and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everybody else right now, again, throwing lots of attention on podcasting. That's an awesome responsibility that we have collectively to not make them go, oh, they still suck. Last thing, switching costs are really quite low. Honestly, switching costs are super low, even in podcasting. Even switching from listening to your podcast to another podcast that talks about the same things. I'm serious. At the risk of offending your life coach, it is unlikely that you have a unique take that is irreplaceable. Seriously, search around on your topic in a directory that you can get to and see how other things are similar to you. So what do we do about this? Well, relentless focus on customer experience, obviously. And I mean the full customer experience. Yes, the listener experience, podcaster. That means the listener experience that goes into their ears, but also the listener experience that goes into the app that they are using to consume your content. The experience of visitors that come to your website. The experience of people who are encountering the shared content you and your listeners are sharing socially. The entire online community experience, if in fact you have one, and you do have one, by the way, whether it's formalized or informalized, maybe just an email experience, is that as good as it can be? When you can finally, once again, go to conferences, people meet you at a conference, that's an experience they're having with you. You better show up with stickers. Apple is already living through this idea of stretched thin loyalty. It's going to cost them, but come on, they're Apple. They're going to survive. But if you take the same laissez-faire attitude, will you and your show survive? I think it's much better to use this current debacle as an example of not what to do. So I've had people asking me all the time, what are we going to do about this problem? We can't get an Apple Podcast Connect even. I was like, well, there's probably not much we can do. I'm not even sure my public shaming of them every day is going to lead to a quicker resolution. But, whatever. Luckily, the good news is these problems aren't hitting the end users. So other than making a virtual gripe fest, which I know I've been involved with, and I apologize for that, what you can do is collaborate with your podcasting peers. thinking about customer experience, listener experience, and perhaps offer to audit each other's listener experiences. This is hard to do from within. So make a list of the people in podcasting you would like to participate with. Send this episode to them and see if they want to reciprocate. You audit them, they audit you. Could be kind of fun. And if you love that idea and all the ideas I bring to you here on Podcast Pontifications 4 days a week, please go to buymeacoffee.com/evoterra and buy me a virtual coffee. That's always nice. I shall be back tomorrow with yet another Podcast Pontifications. Cheers! Recording has stopped. Right, so there you go, people. My thoughts on making a fantastic listener experience. And you should do that. You really should. I mean, it's important. It's important to do that. I'm going to type in, please go to https://podcast pontifications.com and get the final version later this morning. Boom. Sent out. Awesome. Wonderful. Great. So, once again, thank you for being here, watching me do the live thing. I hope you enjoy watching the behind-the-scenes stuff. I like it. It's kind of fun for me. I like having people, whether real or imaginary, in my face as I do the show. It makes things all kinds of better. Like I said, podcastpontifications.com is where the final product will be in 2 hours and 44 minutes. That's how long I have to get the whole thing up there so everyone can enjoy it. Again, podcastpontifications.com. Go to the bottom. Give me your email address. Doesn't cost anything. I don't spam you. You will get the link to the MP3 file as well as the written article for your enjoyment. Please share that around. And if you want, at 10 o'clock today also, phxstartupweek.com. That's where I shall be chatting with Mark Asquith from Rebel Base Media and Captivate FM. I'm on the advisory board of Captivate. He and I will be talking about customer experience, not necessarily as it relates to podcasting, but we're both podcasters, so it's gonna be a factor. We're gonna do it. We'll do that. So, all right. Enough of all of this. Have a lovely rest of your day. See you tomorrow, and goodbye.